Okay, so I started a new project for my documentary editing. I'm just going to choose where I want to put it, which is in my documentary folder with my footage. Put it in there. I'll call it my documentary edit. And scratch discs are all put as same as projects, so they're all with that footage folder. Okay. If I just accept that, then when I do put my footage on it, it'll change it for me. It'll change the settings for me. Right, so first of all, file, import. Interview footage. I'm going to start with the very first interview I did. That's the first. That's the forward-facing camera on it. I'm going to get the secondary camera as well, just so I've got them both there. I'm going to name that Anne forward and Anne second. Just so I know what they are. There we go. So if I drag that, the forward-facing camera, it asks to change the sequence settings, so I'll just say yeah, and then it's done it automatically. If I wasn't on Adobe Premiere Pro, then I'd have to do them manually on Final Cut. Right. Levels, I'm going to change first. Oh, it's up here, effect controls. Oops. Get rid of that. Right, it's on effect controls. Effects, there we go. It's literally right next to where where my clips are. Okay, so I want some video effects. I'm gonna use the colour correction, 3-way colour corrector. There we go. I'm just gonna click and drag it on, which brings it up here. So the back wall is supposed to be white and it's ever so slightly orange, which isn't too much of a problem, but I'm just gonna try and change that. It's on the highlights, so if I just move highlights up here a bit, you can't actually see any difference as I do that. So I'm going to undo that and put it over back and try again with midtones. So now what's changing colour is my midtones, and because the background is changing colour as well, that means that that's part of the midtones. So I'm going to use that and I'm going to move it ever so slightly to the blue side. There we go. And if I undo it, you can see how it changes slightly. There we go. I'm quite happy with the colour of that, so I'm going to leave it. There's no hot spots that I can see, and although this shadow here is a little bit too dark just here, so I'm going to use the brightness and contrast. It's right at the top, that's the one that I use. There we go. Right, so if I just turn up the brightness, you can see how it changes it. Just undo and set it back to how it is. I only want to adjust it ever so slightly. I just turn up the contrast. You can see how contrast changes it from right down at the bottom to right at the top. So I'll set that back to normal, and I'll turn it up a little, just because of how I changed the brightness. So that's it originally, and that's it now. So I'm happy with the way that this looks, so I'm going to leave that. On some of my other interviews, I found that my interviewee had a very red face. So if I import that now, then you can see how I changed that. So interview footage, Joan's interview. Forward camera. Now the camera cut off while Joan was speaking, so I'll put both of those up there. And change those to Joan forward 1 and Joan forward 2. Okay. Now I'm going to scroll over. I'm just going to drop Joan's first interview on, which is that, like, the face is very red. And actually the contrast isn't so great on this one. So I'm going to do the same with what I did on Anne's, which is effects. I will put up the colour corrector first, 3-way colour corrector. That's a mid-tone. So, oh, it's mid-tone and dark tones, I think, on this one. So I'm going to turn them down a bit and make them towards blue, rather than on the red, like that. Now it looks very very blue, or the white balance is now off. So I'm just going to adjust them until I think that it's a bit better. There we go. The white balance is nice like that, and Joan's face isn't quite as red as when that wasn't on. So if I cut this, and that's the original, and then I can just paste it back in. What I've been doing is changing the colours on the 3-way colour corrector to try and bring down some of the redness on the face, and also changing the hue and the saturation to try and give it a bit more of a natural look. Now I'm happy with how that looks. I just turn down saturation a little bit. So that's putting in the saturation and taking it away. I don't want it grey like that. At the same time, I want to bring down some of the redness. Just undo it to see how it looked before. I think that is too grey. So I'm going to put it back to 0. Like that. As it's definitely a lot less red than it was before, so I'm going to leave that as that, but I'm going to put in the brightness and contrast now. Just try and make it a little brighter, ever so slightly, and contrast a little more. See if I can bring some life back into the picture. Like that. I'm happy with that now, I think. That looks good to me. I'm just going to render all of this now, because I don't want, when it comes to watching it, to cut it all up. I don't want to have to wait for it to render itself then. So I'm just going to keep rendering as I go, which is just press enter. Now that that's done rendering, I'm going to put in the sound, just so that I can name all of the Tascam files for each interview so that I don't lose track of them. I'm going to start doing that each time I put in the next video clip. I'm going to put in the audio as well. First of all though, I have had sound running from the camera, so that's been recorded. which means that I've got to silence that, so I'll just do that by clicking that, which now mutes it. Alright, so again it's just file import, but I'll go to the interview footage and it's on sound. Hopefully, although I haven't named them in here or put them into places as I was trying to make it all separate, they should all be in order of the videos that I did, which was Anne, Marie, Joan, the triple interview and James. So all of that footage should all be like this here. So this one should be Anne's. Actually, I put them all in and then it's all in at once and then I can just name them as I go. So putting this one in first, I just have to sort my sound out and turn it on. I made sure as I was going along, as I was filming, I made sure that I did, when doing the clap, I made sure that I said whose interview it was, so it should be on here. Mama, shoot one. There we go. So that's Anne's shoot for definite. Just make this smaller. Wrong way. There we go. And I'll move Joan's interview over a little bit. And the same with that one. Right. I'll put the secondary cam on for Anne, and that should be the forward facing one. Yes, it is. So I'm just going to change the names around. There we go. Right. Oh, that hasn't changed the names of the clips. Okay, I'm just gonna copy and paste all of I can't select them all, so never mind. I can see on here though that obviously this one's the secondary camera and this one's the forward facing one, so that's okay. I've now got to sync them up, which I'll do now. Mama, shoot one. Right, so I heard the clap, which was here on the sound, but I've now got to find the clap on the camera, which was there. So I'll just try and sync these up again, so I'll make it bigger. Now the camera was started before the sound, so Mama, shoot. One. 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 It was ever so slightly off now, so just zoom in some more so I get a bit more leeway with it. Oh. Mama, shoot one. Yeah, the sound was just before the clap. One. And now it's still just before. One. And then just after. Shoot one. Shoot one. Right. I am just to put a marker in, I'm going to cut this clip where I clap, and then I'm going to do the same with the sound. So I'm just going to move that up a bit so that it separates it more, and then I'm just going to listen.
Shoot one.
Which is there. And I can see with the sound that comes up on the side, where when I move the bar around, you can see where the clap is. And I can hear it as well, so it sounds like it's about there. So I'm just going to sync them up by putting them together like that. There we go. So now when I play it,
Shoot one.
oh, it's ever so slightly off still.
One.
So I know that that didn't work.
Mama, shoot one.
I'll move them again. Okay, so using the technique that I was using before the camera cut out again, which was to cut both the audio and the sound, the audio and the video at the clap, has worked, because now my audio and visual footage for Anne's forward-facing camera are synced up nicely.
How long have you lived in Newton? Well, I was born in Deaton. I lived down the road first.
So it looks alright. So when Anne's lips move, the sound comes out as well, which is good. One thing I haven't done with Anne's forward-facing camera yet is just adjusting the colours and brightness and contrast like I did with the other clip. So I'm going to do that with the three-way colour corrector. And I'll just go back to that. Oops, there we go. So again, it looks ever so slightly red. So I'm going to put it slightly toward the blue side. Oh, that's green. There we go. And that, using the dark one completely, the shadows wheel completely changes the colour of the seat behind us, so I'm not going to use that. Instead, I'm now just going to put on the brightness and contrast. And just turn up the brightness a little to see if I can obliterate the shadow as well as I can. Which now you can sort of see into it a bit more, but I'm just going to put a contrast which will darken it a little, just to make it look a little more natural, which that looks good to me. So again, I now need to render, but if I bring all of the clips back in, you can see that's where I adjusted the sound on the camera, and where it claps. So I'm still going to leave that there just so that I can see through that. Yes, so that's right. I'm going to do the same with other clips, the same as the colour correcting on all my other clips, the same as I did with Jones, because some of the other ones have slightly red faces as well, so I'm just going to adjust that. That looks slightly out of focus as well. Oh, what happens with the lighting there? Get some flashes with the lighting. It's not actually that noticeable when you play it slower, but it is there. I'll sort that out once I've finished working on the other clips now, just so I've got all of my clips on there. And I'm also going to put the sound on as well now to match all of the clips. Okay. Alright, so I've gotten to my final, my second to last interview. I've basically filled everything in, so I've got my forward facing cameras and secondary facing cameras, as well as the Tascam sound for each of my interviews. I'm on the second to last one now, which is my triple interview, but I had to set up really quickly on this one, and so I think I've done quite well, apart from once they'd all sat down, I forgot to adjust how the camera was picking them up, the framing on it. So if I double click, I can adjust it myself, just by pulling the edges like that. And what I'd hope to do is make it so that they're as close to camera as possible, with their heads on the upper third line, which they're not quite making. But I'd also want to eliminate some of this table. So obviously this interview isn't going to look great because of that, but I can zoom in a little bit just to adjust it as best I can. And I would prefer to have their eyes on the upper third line and have more table than have less table and more headroom. So I'm going to leave it at that, otherwise if I zoom in any more, it'll cut off more of their space, and also the footage will go down in quality. So I'm just going to put on the sharpen effect, which is in blur and sharpen, just to make sure that it gets rid of any of that blur that might have come along from making it a bit bigger. So I'm just going to put it up to 7, and that already makes a visible difference to me. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do the same with the other one as well, which is basically the same, it's just that the camera cut out at a certain point. So I'm going to do exactly the same to it. And then I've got one more interview to put on before I can start cutting it up. Alright, so now I have organised and chopped up each person's interview into what I want into the questions that I've asked, and then I've taken all of the first questions and brought them right to the front at the start of the interview. There we go. That's all of these. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to separate them up again into their separate interview people, like that. And then I've got to find out which angles I prefer for which bits they're answering. So to do that, I'm just going to watch the forward facing camera, then swap it out for the secondary camera, watch it that way and pick out the best bits in order to make it interesting. For example, I might start with Ant's front forward facing camera and then move on to Joan's secondary camera and then back to the forward camera. So I'll just render this bit so that it'll play smoothly. And then I'll do exactly the same as this to all of the other ones as well. Right, so I've mostly got my setup sorted. So these are my question groups here, and the spaces that I've left in between are where I'm going to put text. So just introducing the question and replacing my voice with text that the audience can watch. So to do that, I will stay in my project bit and just right click right at the bottom, new item, and add title. So I'm just going to put the title as views from a country village, which is what I'm now calling my documentary. And the width and height are 1920 by 1080, which is basically what I filmed in. So I'll accept that. Now I get it here. I don't actually want it on that. I want it to be blank. So then I click and drag and then write in views from a country village. Views from a country village. Alright. And then I can make it bigger by just dragging this bit here. I can change the font type, so we don't want it too fancy because it's just a documentary. So I'm just going to go for HP Simplified just for now, just to show you what it is. I'm just going to put it into central. I don't know how to make that bigger. So I'm going to make my text smaller just so I can see it all. Like that. Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. So, and to move it, it's just like this. So I'm going to put it up at the top. Put it a couple of centimetres from there we go. Put it back onto text so that I can make the text bigger again, as I quite like how it looks like that. What's like, I'm going to put it in bold just so it stands out more, and then I can have my name underneath in well, not bold. We've got some styles underneath, but I'm not too keen on those. So yeah, that just changes colour and things. Alright. So I can change how it looks with colour wise here. So I can go with red and green and blue and stuff. As it's countryside, I think I'll pick something, maybe a dark green. See how that looks? You can see it, but it doesn't really look very professional. So I think I'm just going to stick with white because you can see it better. It's the easiest to see on black. So that's how you put in a title, and then I'm just going to put in pretty much exactly the same, just going to put my name in. If I can. I don't think I made the box quite big enough for the text size. There we go. click back on the text. So, Anne-Marie Short, there we go. I'll make that white as well. And not have it bold, have it in light. There we go. Remove the colour. Make it a little smaller as well, because obviously it's not the most important part. There we go. And then just bring it down. Ooh. There we go. So that's Views from a Country Village, yeah. And now, that's how I want it. So I think it's literally just clicking the cross. No, that doesn't bring it up. Right, so I'm going to do that again and figure out how to accept it. Okay, basically you do just click across and it appears here in the project area. So you just pull it over and it's now just works exactly like any other clip. So I can make it longer like that. And I can edit this just like a clip, so I can put in a video transition, go with a dissolve, a dip to black, I guess. I'll put that in on the end, and then playing it, it just dips away like that. So I'm going to do something like that, probably change the font, the text style, what it says, and I'll fill in each of the gaps, and I'll make sure that they're all equal and at the same time limit as all of them. So I'm going to continue with that now. So the final thing that I've been changing when doing these videos is the sound. To me, I like the way that all of the audio is working. At first I was worried when I put it, when I was listening to it just straight through my laptop, but it's a normal thing for it to be much more quiet through the laptop on Premiere Pro than when you put your headphones in, as when you're editing you're supposed to use your headphones. So using my headphones, the sound is a lot clearer, it's a lot louder as well, so I don't have to have my volume on 100 just to hear it. So I've left the sound as it is. There's nothing grainy about it, so I don't think it needs any adjustment at all. The only thing that I've been doing to my sound is putting in an exponential fade on the end where the visual ends to become a question title. So all I've been doing is clicking and dragging an exponential fade onto my audio track and either extending or shortening it depending on how long I want it to be. And that is all I've been doing with my sound. And then that way it puts in a little fade at the end of the audio so it doesn't just cut off. So it seems more natural, it flows better. And that is the last thing I've been doing, editing with this. You've seen me do all the other bits. So my documentary now is at just over 10 minutes. It's almost 13 minutes long. I'm just filling in the final question now, which is basically just cutting up my visuals and audio and just pasting it into a sequence. And then after that, all I've got to do is export it. So another thing is that I just noticed I had a spelling mistake on this question. I put if you could change us on thing instead of if you could change one thing. So all I did there to correct that was double click on the little slide bit on my timeline and then I could just adjust any of my spellings on there, which I will be double checking once I've finished and I'm ready to export. Okay, so now I have sorted out all of my sound and all of my video, as well as all of the titles and credits, which are here. So now all I have to do, I've rendered it, I've saved it as it is, so now I need to export it. So basically I go to File, Export, Media. I am going to put it into my footage folder. I'm going to call it documentary. Documentary final. So save it there. Format. I want it as an AVI. 1 second. Yeah, I'm going to save it as an AVI. Basic quality settings, video settings, sorry. It's wanting it at widescreen, there we go. So it's a widescreen, I do believe. Then I'm going to export it as that and check that everything was okay as it is. And then I can change it again and re-export it if I have done it wrong. Okay, so exporting now, and that'll take a while.